Welcome back to the LEC. My name is Vedius, and I'm joined by Defender as he goes to defend Helm's Deep, and Guldborg, where apparently the G is silent. We're about getting ready for MAD versus SK, and we're going to be talking a little bit about our opinions on MAD. Now, it is important to say that we have prepared absolutely nothing. So I want to know your random opinions. I've never heard this opinion before, and I'm ready to rebuttal, Guldborg. So tell me, what do you have to say about the MAD Lions?
I think they can be an exciting team, Vedius. And the reason why I think they can be an exciting team is because the thematic or stylistic of how this team can shape up. So let's start bot side, right? Because there's a lot of talks about the bot lane of MAD Lions.
Okay, yeah.
Right. When I think Carzzy, right? When I have to think Carzzy at his best, it was when he played for MAD Lions, and it was when he was playing Ezreal, and he was a self-sufficient AD carry, which allowed Kai'Sa to do his stuff on the rest of the map. Now, a player like Hylissang, who can be a Pike aficionado, who can now play up towards the rest of the map on the top side, enable a really good mid-jungle duo, because if we take it up to the mid-jungle, Elyoya, Nisqy, they had the best year last year, where they were the jungle duo dynamic in the mid lane there, just coming around and enabling the map. I say that. They're allergic to playing for the bot lane. Even when Unforgiven was on Draven,
I feel like you're talking like you've already solved this MAD Lions before we've even seen him play.
I do want some clarity, though.
No, it's a discussion. Go ahead, go.
Because I want the main statement. Because you opened up with they're an exciting team.
Yeah.
Are you saying like this is a team that can make a huge dent at the top?
Yeah.
Are title contenders?
I agree with Enda.
What's the statement?
Come on.
Well, the statement in that they might be really exciting to watch in the middle of the pack. Like,
They might be really exciting to watch in the middle of the pack.
The reason why
it's like the most wishy-washy.
Okay,
what was the feedback you gave me in the green room?
Listen to me. My opinion is that this MAD roster has everything that they need to succeed.
I would get there.
Okay? Listen, I think that Nisqy thrives in a roam-style environment. But in order for him to be able to be unlocked on the map, you need someone that can come mid, and Elyoya and Hylissang is the best jungle support that you have
who's gonna
for
come mid?
Unlocking your mid laner.
Who's going to come mid?
It'll be Hylissang and
Elyoya.
And a self-sufficient AD carry, boom.
Also, and hear me out, because I agree, the roams, what have we been seeing first picked multiple times? Say the Rye is coming back for Nisqy. This is a meta for Nisqy.
And Twisted Fate, I'm expecting to see it. If we're going to see it from one player, it will be him in the mid lane. The biggest question mark for me, and honestly the person I'm the most excited about, is their new top laner, Chasy. I think that he has a lot of potential. The question is, can he actually live up to the hype?
And that was like the final nail in my point from the beginning when we get to the top lane, because he was the kind of player who did not mind getting resources on the top side. He was the kind of player who'd be, well, either I'm on Na, or I'm also going to be on the Fiora and be that side lane threat that we're going to have there. So if you have a mid laner, like the Nisqy on Rise or TF and the mid jungle dude that want to roam out towards top side, and a jungler or a top laner that wants to play the top side, that's a really nasty cocktail that might have a kick.
Are you excited, Enda? Are you excited? Hang on, we're running out of time. Are you excited?
I'm excited. I was just under the impression there was going to be like a fist fight up here. There was going to be some disagreement, but it seems like we're all fairly confident that this team is going to be strong.
It seems like, unsurprisingly, analysts are aligned. But we've talked enough about MAD, so let's get some real perspectives on SK as we hand it over to Sjokz and Laure.
Unsurprisingly, it was a lot of waffling, but I didn't hear any concrete opinions on anything, which is also classic analyst. I'm kidding. But I'm here with Laure because we're also going to talk about MAD Lions' opponents, SK. SK has had quite the overhaul, and we specifically wanted to talk about their bot lane coming in from the LFL, Exakick and DOS.
Of course. When it comes to hyping my LFL boys, of course, I'm going to be here always. And I'm super happy to see Exakick, especially making it to the LEC this year, because I know he's been waiting for this day for 8 years. This is something he tweeted earlier today. And finally seeing him on stage this year, I couldn't be happier, especially because he's paired with DOS, who's been playing with him at LGLCOL for the past 2 years now. So obviously there's some existing synergy here.
I had no idea it was so long in the making, his arrival.
He's fairly young, but he's been watching League and playing League for such a long time. He popped professionally recently, I would say 3 years ago. But yeah, this is something he was always aiming for, and finally he made it. And I kind of think he made it in the best team he could with his teammates as SK this year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. When it comes to how Exakick and DOS like to approach the lane and the game in general, can you tell me what they did in the LFL and what you expect of them in the LEC?
I think it's interesting because when you look at LDLCOL last year, you had a strong force on the top lane in the likes of Ragnar, but the bot lane was also a super central point. The issue was that, and I'm talking about Exakick here especially, is that when he pops off, he's gonna have an amazing game. But if he doesn't feel confident, this is when LDLC would fail. So I'm just wondering what is gonna be the synergy here and the dynamic here for SK Gaming, because when I look at LDLCOL last year, the mid lane was a pivot point between the top lane and the bot lane. And of course, he was getting a lot of resources because AK was helping him from the mid lane. So if the dynamic of SK Gaming is the same this year and Sertuss can help the bot lane out and push them ahead, I think it should be a good team and an exciting team to watch. And I was talking to Exakick a couple minutes ago before they came on stage, and he was telling me that he has the same vibes he had in the LFL last year with his teammates this year. So a great start, I hope, for him.
That's great.
Yeah.
What's your gut check if we look at also Markoon is in the mix there, and we remember on his time with Excel that he was extremely proactive.
Yeah.
He was making things happen in the early game. How is that going to fit into the puzzle?
I think Markoon joining the team is a really good thing for SK Gaming. I think that he's going to fit really well with the whole dynamic and how the player likes to play. When you think of Markoon last year with Excel, we know that when he didn't manage to find opportunities, this is when Excel wouldn't succeed. So I'm really interested in seeing how he can do this year with these players.
So hopefully it's not all feast or famine. It's not all, if nobody makes something happen that they then just can't do anything
that is
in
the issue. I think the early game especially is going to be a central point here.
Okay, is there a possibility that this SK could be a dark horse?
I heard good things about them so far. This is why I'm excited to see them on stage today, because we know that training and official games can be very different. So I want to see this SK Gaming team very aggressive, especially from the early game.
Okay, I missed the cue, producers. Are we ready to go to the game or not? We're not ready. Great, no problem. Also, not surprising, I guess. This is where we could maybe talk to the desk if it's possible at all and have a little back and forward. Because when it comes to this combination of players and with the information that you guys have and what Laure just explained to us about the bot lane as well, what do you feel about SK's chances?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on the perspective that you have with how you feel MAD is going to come into the split versus SK. Because, I mean, Guldborg seems to have them solved, you know? Guldborg sees the formula. He knows how MAD is going to play. I'm still a little hesitant. You know, I think that there's potential for a formula there, but Hylissang is by far and away one of the most talented supports in Europe. He's also one of the players that you cannot predict ever. And I think that when you put him in a new environment, having any expectation as to what he will do is something that you can't really control.
Wait, yeah, you can though. Isn't it all? You always know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I was actually I'm
really?
in alignment with Sjokz. Yeah, Hylissang's gonna do Hylissang shit.
But what does that mean? What does that mean?
That means that, okay, what that actually means is that Hylissang is going to play in a way that I feel like Hylissang always is looking at ways to like exploit the most common lane matchups.
Sure.
In terms of like wave control, either looking for engage timers off that or roams to mid or into the enemy jungle. Like, I actually think that Hylissang as a player, like, he is hard to figure out when you play against, but the way he goes into games is very similar, if that makes sense, because he's always looking for the same kinds of things.
But that doesn't make him predictable.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think his playstyle, the way he wants to play the game is predictable, but what that turns into within the actual game, that is not the same thing.
Apparently, we've got 2 more people added to the call.
This is awesome. So it's going to put together. Sjokz, I absolutely love the fact that you actually asked the analyst desk a question, so I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to put VoD on the spot.
Yeah.
What is the all-time head-to-head between MAD Lions and SK?
I think it is 11-6 to MAD Lions.
Bro, you've just given MAD Lions 5 extra wins. It's 6-6 all-time.
They've
only ever met in the regular season, completely dead even. I'm going to wait. Producers, are we going to keep chatting as a group here?
I'm going to... Wait, GB has had his hand up for like the whole time, so I'm just going to...
It's teamwork. Good job, Sjokz.
Go ahead, GB.
Well, I had a joke that made sense while Ender was talking, and now we've kind of gone through the motions.
You ruined
So
it,
you can take it
Quickshot.
back
You
instead.
ruined it.
All right. Okay, our casters can take it away. Go ahead.
That was absolutely awesome. We've got nearly every single member of the Honor Talent team on broadcast. Welcome back to the caster desk. We are moments away from MAD Lions taking on SK. The all-time head-to-head 6-6. I think expectations, again, favoring MAD Lions here, but for SK specifically, when you look at Exakick and DOS, those are the two players with a lot of excitement around them.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at Spring, right, 2 wins over towards SK. Summer was 2 wins over towards MAD Lions. So SK definitely not out of it completely. And I think as you talk about Exakick and DOS, I'm very excited to see what these two guys can do. But I do have some question marks around them, because when you actually look at the champions that they were playing back in the LFL, one of the big standouts was there wasn't a lot of Zeri, there wasn't a lot of Lucian. DOS was favoring things like the Rakan and even these engage supports way more than the enchanters. So I'm curious to see now coming into this if they've adapted to this. But one of the big ones as well is, and something that we've actually seen a lot in the LCK and the LPL, is the Kalista. And that was respect banned very often against these guys. So maybe that's something that we actually have to keep our eyes on specifically for this duo in the bot side.
And the other thing is, I think Lucian and Zeri have found themselves in the ban pool several times throughout the course of the day, but also the bot lane meta, in at least my eyes, not playing out to expectation versus what I was anticipating. I think the Ashe, the Jhin, the Heimer, so much higher priority for literally 6 of the 10 teams that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're not getting the like Zeri Lulu, the Sivir Lulu has actually been a very big surprise to me, but teams basically saying, hey, look, we don't want to try and go for this super late game. Ashe has been a very, very strong support for a while, kind of creeping into the meta. So the fact that we're getting her back is super cool. I think the big one for me, though, is going to be looking to see, hey, look, you know, we've got Markoon on one side. When he was on Excel, he was very, very good at trying to play around his bot side, get Patrick rolling, snowball those leads. Do we get a similar story now where you got Exakick and DOS on that bot side?
Yeah, but and also he has to do it against Elyoya, arguably the best, at least his name's in contention for best jungler in Europe, you know, for a while now. We've got some stats that we'll look at when we're in game. But let's talk about that matchup. Markoon versus Elyoya. Obviously, the draft's going to have a huge impact, but I think Markoon demonstrated with Excel, when he does get ahead early, he can win his team games. The same exact is true for Elyoya, and we know Elyoya's carry potential.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's like, okay, well, where do we see Elyoya put his eggs into what basket, right? Because it feels like you can try and play around this bot side, especially now that you've got such an insane bot lane coming in Carzzy and Hilly, but it's also a case of, okay, well, do you want to try and play around Nisqy? Because it feels like, as the desk was kind of alluding to, we're seeing Nisqy's champion pool start to come in. I think Yamato said on the Euphoria podcast, was like, who the hell did he bribe in Riot to get this champion pool back in?
The thing that I'm also intrigued about it, don't forget that for the MAD Lions roster, this is a significant roster overhaul, right? Chasy coming in the top lane, Carzzy as well as Hylissang coming in the bottom lane, and it's going to be up to Elyoya and Nisqy, the most reliable, arguably most consistent players that we've seen from the MAD Lions squad for a while. But I think Chasy was going to be one of the names that could be a bit of an X factor. Could be somebody that not many people will be as familiar with as obviously Carzzy and Hilly.
Yeah, he was a guy who played on X7 coming in to EU Masters last split. He would look very, very good in their wins, but could also have a bit of a problem in their losses, because this is a guy who wants to show he's better than you. Yeah. He wants to always beat you, and he wants to try and push that advantage. But that sometimes means he's thinking so much about the matchup, he forgets that junglers exist in the game, and that can cause issues for them sometimes. So I want to keep my eyes out to see essentially how this all works out, because it feels like in certain situations you kind of go, okay, are we going to coin flip topside? Are we also then looking at Carzzy and Hilly? That can also be a bit flippy. Well, it feels like you got to get double tails, double heads, wherever the hell you go.
Well, MAD Lions, if you look at Chasy, if you look at Hylissang, coin flips on both sides of the rift. This could be an intriguing game. We do unfortunately have another small game delay. Can only apologize about the pauses. It has been a few months since we've been here. A lot of new players on stage as well. As soon as we get an update on that, I will let you know. I will ask you though, in terms of the 3 games you've seen, how surprised or happy have you been in terms of the champion diversity or differences, if any, in terms of what we've seen from LPL LSK?
I think they're like the big sizable one is kind of looking at that top side, right? We saw Finn go for the first pick in the Fiora, which is something that you see a lot over in the eastern regions. Unfortunately, you're kind of seeing why it hasn't been as heavy picked over this side, right?
Fiora.
Yeah, even like, it's kind of been a joke at international events where like Western players will come off and go, they just do more damage. I don't understand how, but I mean, we have seen the Jax. I think BB played that incredibly well earlier on for G2. He did have some struggles up against the K'Sante and kind of getting used to that champion, but overall, I think we're kind of seeing that we're probably going to teeter back towards the K'Santes, the tankier guys on the top side, rather than going for some of these big all-out carries.
I'm very excited to see K'Sante and see whether or not he can continue to have an influence here. And ladies, gentlemen, and everybody else, I think we are moments away from meeting the MAD Lions and SK Gaming for their 2023 debut! Thank you so much, Berlin, and everybody watching around the world. The players will take their seats and jump into picks and bans. I want to reiterate something that Dagda was talking about in terms of Exakick and DOS. So what we're seeing as priority picks in the meta worldwide are champions that we've not seen Exakick and DOS play to, definitely not recently, that's for certain. And more importantly, what is going to be brought to the table? Are we going to continue to see the Ashe and the Jhin and the Heimer being priority? Varus as well, one of the most played champions that we see in the bot lane. And also, we haven't even talked about it just yet, but what is Nisqy and Sertuss going to be running in the middle lane? Because we know Sertuss, Nisqy has got big pockets and he's bribed the game development team. Maybe he's good friends with Freak.
Well, I mean, even for Sertuss as well, he was a big Rise player coming in from the ERLs too, so opening that, this will probably be banned away from both Nisqy and Sertuss, but I think that's kind of the cool thing about the mid lane pool at the moment. You can go for the Rises, the roaming mid laners, you got things like the Azir that are still in meta, but even things we haven't touched on, like Galio, very popular in LPL, Talia has also been creeping back into to the game as well, so we'll have to see exactly what these two want to go for.
And I think Galio is a champion I definitely think of when I think about Nisqy. 14 professional games played, 71% win ratio. In terms of the picks and bans, now Akali will follow suit. So Lucian open, Yuumi open, Zeri open as some of the priority picks. What will be removed from the pool? And also, what champions will Markoon and Elyoya be prioritizing? Because they can have a gigantic impact on who's victorious today.
Yeah, I was going to say the Maokai is the big one. We've seen it consistently banned here on red side. Incredibly strong in the current patch. We're even seeing the First Strike, Demonic Embrace, AP build. You can go for that Radiant Virtue if you want to as well. He's just got a ton of flexibility, but not going to be seeing him this time around. Curious if we do get the Yuumi ban, but it feels like, okay, so they're going to go. So now you have to either let Yuumi go through or you let the Lucian go through. So now SK Gaming have to decide, and we'll have to see exactly where they land. It's a tough call, and it's kind of how you expect Carzzy and Hylissang to play the game.
Hylissang's Yuumi, good or bad? What's your instinct?
I mean,
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so put numbers to it.
Why you put the new guy in the spot?
10 professional games, and he has won 8 of them, and it is open. Okay, Chasy is banned away, but that means at least the priority bot laners and supports that we have seen from other regions are available. If you prioritize one for Mad Lions, you give the potential for the duo on the other side.
So in the other regions, we've seen the Lucian first. So that is actually what they're going to go for here, and I do like it. I think Lucian offers a huge amount, and also what we've kind of looked at, especially when you look at teams like LEC and these kind of things, is you have to be very, very good on your Zeri Yuumi to be able to kind of overcome the Lucian in the mid to the late game. And we'll have to see if Exakick and DOS and their first ones can kind of show their stuff. But already not making fans particularly happy with the first game.
Despite the strong response from Berlin and many people around the world, imagine what it must feel like for SK. Debut on, a game on this stage. A lot of these players incredibly young. The most experienced player is Markoon. He's got himself that Vi, and now DOS has to step up with the kitty cat.
Yeah, and look, we'll have to see exactly how he's going to do. I mean, I imagine it's going to be the Zeri paired with it, incredibly strong with that. We see the Nami locked in, coming across here to go for Hilly, and I imagine we will get a jungler. The big question is exactly what they want to go for. I think Wukong could still be a good option here if they want to try and go to a special Maokai band away, but we have seen things like the Sejuani as an answer to the Vi, where Vi goes in, Sejuani tosses that ultimate back into the remaining backline and just causes absolute ruckus for anyone who's trying to go forward.
I will tell you, statistically speaking, Hylissang's Nami is not the greatest. 17 games played, he's only got a 40% win ratio on that champion. He's playing under a new banner with Mad Lions. Carzzy has rejoined the Mad Lions, and Elyoya will lock in that Wukong. So we're anticipating Zeri. That should be the expected pick. Then we turn our attention to bans. What do you think is a big priority here? You can see the Maokai, the Rise, the Jace have been taken away, as well as the Jackson Akali. So a number of solo lane bans already removed from the pool.
Yeah, I think we'll probably continue in towards these mid lane bans. Just trying to pinch that pool a little bit more, especially when we're looking at both Sertuss and Nisqy that have played more facilitator styles. Things like the Lissandra has been really good, Azir we banned away, Kassadin as well, just very, very strong, although we haven't seen him really come through. Sylas, another one that's still kind of working in the middle there, especially when you have things like the Nami ultimate, the Wukong, that can kind of be nice takeaways here for Sertuss, but already you see that Lissandra is going to be taken off the board.
I really like that, especially into champions like Vi and Zeri. Managed to use that potential tomb, lock somebody down. hold them in place to allow the likes of the rest of your squad to deal the damage. MAD Lions taking a little bit of time here on their first ban.
I am curious though, because in my head for MAD Lions, I think you could just ban away tanky top laners, ban the K'Sante. We're not going to see it, but the thought process was, okay, then Chasy is the carry guy, so set up for Irrelevant to be a little bit off tilt where he likes to be on the more tanky members and see if Chasy can take over that top side. But they are just going to hard focus this mid lane with the Syndra taken off the board, and now we'll have to see exactly what his plan is going to be for SK Gaming. They get first rotation on these mid laners, but that Gwen ban might actually signal that they want to go for the K'Sante first for Irrelevant.
Yeah, of course, we know Gwen is really good into that K'Sante. MAD Lions, do they feel the need to ban it against a potential lock-in, or do they fear something else? I think when you look at the number of mid lane bans, instinct's telling me that Nisqy may be in a slightly more advantageous position if he goes for a more defensive or reactive type of mid laner, because we just seen the experience, the amount of games he has, and also the style. Carzzy, Chasy, Elyoya, they can be carries for their team. Nisqy can also be that supportive mid laner, so we need to figure out what he's going to lock in, as it was Galio that was banned away.
And I mean, look, you can see the teams themselves are kind of puzzling this one through as well as they take their time. K'Sante is going to be the lock-in as expected, which means that there isn't going to be too many picks that Chase can go for. I imagine Nair would kind of just be the default back to it, right? It plays into his team fights well as a good matchup against the K'Sante, where you are able to play at range and keep him kind of out of the equation. And even when you've got a super short range composition like that Zeri, the Yuumi, suddenly that Nair is far more threatening in these fights than he usually is. But actually going to be the Renekton instead for Chasy.
Okay, what do you make of that? And we're also looking at this final lock-in here for Nisqy, hovering the Orianna. Renekton into K'Sante, and let me know what you think about Nisqy's pick as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Renekton is a lane bully, can do relatively well in trying to just trade effectively against K'Sante and keep it in check. But when you're looking at the short range as well on SK, maybe if Chasy's able to keep his flashes for these fights, he can play into this very, very hard. But you are heavily spiking in the mid game here for MAD Lions with everyone apart from your mid laner. So I'll be expecting them to look for quick fights around mid, quick fights around the Rift Tower. But we talked about the Kassadin. I think he's absolutely giga broken at the moment, and we might get our chance to see it.
Do it! Do it! Do it! I'm waiting for it to lock in. A quick aside, Nisqy has only played 6 games on Viktor. Won 3 of them, lost 3 of them. Yes! We have a Kassadin in the mid lane. Dagda, zoom out. Tell me how both of these teams want to win their games.
Yeah, so definitely for MAD Lions, I feel like you're going to be using the fact that you've got this strong Lucian Nami in the bot side to try and take over, then try and utilize the fact that you've got Chasy to look for Rift Towers, try and take down these towers nice and quick, and use Elyoya to try and facilitate Carrzy and Hylissang through the mid game and through that mid lane, start taking more and more towers and break open that game very quickly. Whereas when you look across at SK, all right, fantastic, you've got good split push coming through with Sertuss on this Kassadin, especially as he starts to go into the game, but you've also got a lot of backline threat as well. So you've got 2 divers with Markoon, Sertuss, Irrelevant if he goes all out as well, and then Exakick and DOS are very good at taking care of themselves. So you have a ton of backline threat on SK that just wants to rip through MAD Lions in the later portion.
I am terrified at the combinations. Yuumi plus any single one of those champions can absolutely take over the game. The implication, or at least the understanding in my head, is SK need to be in a position to take advantage of that, play on the front foot. Really, really great to see the support and the love between all the coaches.
I love that the crowd went full pantomime. I was like,
oh, it's so nice. Very, very interesting. I do have a record that Sertuss has played 1 game of Kassadin in the ERLs. It was not a victory. Will it work today in terms of the power that can be unlocked on 13-1?
I'm really curious to see what the build is for Nisqy here, because what we've started to see is Viktor swapping over towards this Rod of Ages build, which is incredibly strong. Rod of Ages is just a very strong item in general, but I feel like you want to try and bully this Kassadin a little bit more. We'll have to see if he wants to try and go for it.
We'll find out as we load onto the Rift for MAD Lions versus SK Gaming. Welcome to Summoner's Rift for the penultimate game of day 1 of the Winter Split. I'm still shaking off a little bit of the rust. Taking a look at the lane assignments for now. Elyoya and Chasy, a little bit of backup, stepping into the jungle. But no early plays just yet. Hyli and Carzzy, however, on that Lucian Nami, it is a devastating duo, especially in the early stages of the game. They are waiting in the bush, so if Exakick and DOS get caught out, that could be problematic for them. MAD Lions feeling the advantage, at least in the level 1s, pushing into the jungle.
Yeah, I like that you're trying to get this vision down for Elyoya, though, because you do very much want to try and play around this bottom side and get it rolling. So spotting out Markoon's early pathing, when you know that this guy has been so excellent when he was on XL at getting his bot lane under control, it feels like Elyoya and Markoon are going to be the focus here in how they can try and set up this early game.
Yeah, I think I do want to take a brief moment just before the action starts to highlight the stats and the performances Elyoya and Markoon had, at least in terms of the 2022 summer season. K+A 14, second and third. Team proximity, first and third. CSD difference, this is where you see significant differences, where Elyoya's been able to pull ahead in the creep score and the gold. I think Elyoya, not many people would disagree, was the more consistent, arguably the better player. But you cannot deny Markoon's highs.
He's the best all-round jungler in the LEC, right? Like, and he is the best jungler in the LEC for me at the moment. He's been absolutely incredible. The different side to this, though, is that Markoon, I think, was very, very good at setting himself a game plan and going, this is what I'm going to execute on. And that was where he actually did incredibly well in Excel. And it was trying to play around the bot side, getting Patrick and Mickey set up. So I want to see now with Exakick and DOS coming in, if we see that same sort of story. And it looks like, at least for Markoon's game plan here, with going from top towards bot, he does want to try and lend a bit of pressure down towards this bottom side.
What about the risks in terms of trying to go into the Lucian Nami lane and understanding that, yes, if they can get Exakick and DOS ahead, it's a little bit more complicated. You can already see Carzzy and Hilly have shoved that wave all the way forward. It'll surprise no one that Viktor is shoving into Sertuss' Kassadin with a small advantage there as well. So there's more options going to be available to Elyoya to make those moves, which means Markoon has a more difficult time finding a counterpunch or a reply.
This is a nice steal away from Elyoya as well to make Markoon a little bit less likely to stick around on this bot side. I'm surprised he's actually going for the 2 camps, because he doesn't have vision on Markoon. Does know that he started on the top end, but doesn't actually know where he is on this full clear. So bit of a risky play, but Elyoya looks like he might just get away with this. No smite, though. Will need his lanes to try and come across and help, because Markoon is now in the area.
All right, down to 400. No spine, as you mentioned. That wave is shoved in very, very deep. Elyoya not going to be able to pick that up. Secured by Markoon, as far as I can see. Yeah. We'll take that blast cone, or actually just going to dash over the wall. So ultimately, gift wraps it to Markoon.
I mean, just says thanks for leech, right? Now he's actually ahead on the clear. Now going to move in towards River to fight Elyoya, because Elyoya tanked up that entire Gromp. So with no pressure from mid lane, though, Markoon will just back it up and be totally fine. So this is where, again, you're kind of looking like, nice try from Elyoya, but the fact that we saw those jungle changes coming in that make it so much difficult to take these camps, I think you are, most cases, when you go for these quick invades, better off just taking one camp and getting back out, instead of wasting time like that.
I think that's such a great visual example of the changes to the jungle since the last time we saw this level of play, like at the World Championship. We haven't seen too much of the top lane just yet, as we do jump up. Chasy being jumped on by Irrelevant. Small CS advantage for the Renekton in the early stages as that wave is pushing into Irrelevant. And while all that's going on, I am going to ask, Markoon loses his blue buff, gets his Gromp, but crucially, Elyoya is going to pick up the blue as well. So it is a 3-buff start for that Wukong. Small advantage here to Elyoya and the MAD Lions.
Yeah, I like that Markoon reset, though, because now he still ends up on this bottom side. Should be able to now move back up into his top as it respawns, but also has a chance to, say, look for a gank on top, just as you can see his Krugs are about to spawn as well. So at least he's trying to play towards Irrelevant, make sure he's fine, as he's actually taken quite a lot of damage in that top side. And Chasy, we already talked about how he likes to be aggressive in this top side. He's been very, very strong in his moments for his team, where when he's able to pop off, he pops off hard.
Yeah, he really does. And of course, the wins and losses, those stats are dramatically different. I call your attention to the bottom. 8 KDA to 1, 650 damage per minute to 491. And I think for me, the big one is if Chasy's ahead during the laning phase, just as the laning phase ends at 14, that's kind of the key to unlocking him, at least for the NLC and EM Summer.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of the guys on the European Masters talk about this specifically, where Chasy was kind of a good leverage to see, okay, how are X7 going to do? If he's ahead, he's going to pop off. But you can see at the moment, right, like, he is playing right underneath this tower, and if you end up in a situation where Markoon does roam top, there's very little vision there to support him, and that's why we'll oftentimes see him get caught out. But at the moment, Markoon is not going to be able to punish him, so Chasy getting away with this aggression in that top side.
Okay, Dagda, I'm going to give you a freebie. We're 5.5 minutes in. Elyoya's going to start the dragon. It feels like MAD Lions right now are starting to win lane, maybe win game. Who will be the first person to concede first blood? We may have a little bit of a gank here as Markoon gets jumped on. Who do you think is the enemy most likely to fall?
I mean, I think at some stage we're going to see a gank up towards top lane, which is probably going to be one of the areas where we see a lot of pressure, but I don't think it's actually going to net a lot. I mean, both Kassadin and Renekton very, very difficult to gank. So I imagine we'll see a big dive coming through with Nisqy and Elyoya post 6 on towards this bot side where they pick off Exakick and DOS, and that's the biggest one that I'm keeping my eyes out for. Once we start to see Elyoya hit that, get the Cyclone, Carzzy has access to that ultimate as well. This is where bot lane gets terrifying.
Right now, bot lane is being jumped on. Exakick is being dumpstered from that damage of Lucian Nami. I also feel like Elyoya was really trying to force something around that dragon, jumping onto Markoon, stuck around the dragon for a little bit. Admittedly, not too many camps up to go and farm for Elyoya, but he forced that invade on the Gromp, was forcing around the dragon. You can already feel how Elyoya is trying to just get into SK's face. It's netted MAD Lions that 700 gold lead.
Yeah, as long as he's stopping Markoon from interacting with these lanes, he's winning, right? Because you already pointed out win lane is kind of the win game prospect here for MAD Lions, especially if you've got Carzzy and Hilly that are playing this aggressive on bot side. They're starting to chip away at the turret.
Oh no, come on, Bron. DOS has been jumped on, no damage to follow. Heal and exhaust was still up, so not the biggest risk, but DOS being caught by that Nami Q.
Again, though, it's just desyncing the bot side, right? Now DOS is going to be late on the reset, so now you can get Carzzy on the map. It actually buys a bit of time for Hilly as well. So you're still seeing that these are tiny, tiny wins from MAD Lions that need to now go into CS advantages for Carzzy, plates for Carzzy. He's got the half of his first plate down on bot side, but we need to see more of that, more of this turning into things like the Dragon as well.
Yeah, I think in my head, I can't switch off the idea as Kassadin, Zeri scale and get items. Them backed up by Yuumi can absolutely take over the game. The thing is, I think there's also a high degree of execution required to pull that off. You've really got to make sure that your initiation works well. You've got to make sure that the Renekton, Wukong, Viktor don't just destroy everything not empowered by Yuumi. So there's a lot of vision and the right calls need to be made. But of course, when you look at those champions, they can absolutely take over.
It's also because you don't have the longest range, right?
Yes.
For something like a Lucian that has a dash, a Gale Force, and the culling as well, suddenly your health bar disappears very, very quickly. So you do have to be careful. But I like what MAD Lions are doing now, right? They're moving around the map, using the fact that they have these early advantages, looking for the Rift Herald. They know that a lot of their game plan involves around getting Carzzy early leads, and with the likes of this Rift Herald, they can do just that. And Carzzy, I mean, you're up against Exakick, who's level 5, Yuumi without an ultimate as well. He's not going to be dove anytime soon.
No, he's not. What I will say, though, is Markoon, he's going to use the Vault Breaker, dives into the Dragon Pit. There's a lot of MAD Lions. The Pride collecting in the mid lane. Dragon is now down to just about half hit points. There's 3 MAD Lions make their way. Sertuss can come in from behind. DOS has hit level 6. The final chapter is being read. The fish has been rooted, but the first blood has been secured by Elyoya onto Markoon. Immediately traded back as Hylissang's turned into sushi, and Elyoya runs for his life. 1 for 1, but the kill goes to Kassadin.
I mean, the fact that that was 1 for 1 is probably a big win for MAD Lions, because you can see Carzzy was completely stuck on this bottom side of the map. He wasn't going to help out, so even with the numbers advantage, they get to trade something back. But well, as you said, 1 kill going across the Sertuss, that's 1 kill that's going to get him closer towards that Rod of Ages and start that stacking and getting ever closer to that level 16.
I think as well, SK is showing zero hesitation on the initiation. It looked to me like Markoon was a little bit of trouble, kind of got flanked, but that Yuumi ability to hop between champions and throw down that ult started off. Unfortunately for SK, they are down 1,300 gold. It's Elyoya, the main beneficiary. The Dragon is still standing. All of a sudden, we're seeing now Markoon and the rest of the squad. They're dancing around this Dragon, trying to get an advantage, but neither team has really got enough time to finish it off.
Yeah, and it's not surprising that you're seeing these small gold leads open up for MAD Lions, right? You've got double first strike coming through, particularly for Nisqy in that mid lane. That's where you're seeing the majority of that gold lead come from, plus the plate that he's already managed to pick up for himself. We already talked about Elyoya getting this early control as well, and I'm glad that we're seeing this now take a step up for MAD Lions as well. They have that Rift Herald. They can start to put this down. They're starting to use the fact that Nisqy has that push in mid lane to roam him around the map as well. But I'm curious exactly what the game plan is for Elyoya with this Rift Herald. It's halfway through, and it's not like he's going to be moving down to the bot lane anytime soon.
What do you think would be the best move to see from that? Rod of Ages completed at 10.5 minutes for Sertuss' Kassadin. That is concerning. In the previous game, Dagda was talking about just how gold efficient that item is at max stacks. And Markoon is uncontested and unchallenged on this Dragon. While that's going on, Chasy's going to go and do some dirty farming between towers, and on the bottom lane, Exakick and DOS were shoving all the way in. I mean, Carzzy's low, he's used the culling, so SK, they go in and get the objective. They do get the dragon on the bot side, which is definitely going to help in delaying and buying time, right? They get essentially another 5 minutes until MAD Lions can start to stack these dragons, but you still got to be careful on bot side, because you know you've set your jungler up top here for MAD Lions. It means you've actually got to get Carrzy and Hilly to back away, and that gives the opportunity for Exakick and DOS to get some plates themselves and even up that bot lane when it comes to gold. So I kind of like what SK have been doing. The fact you get that early Roa is great for Sertuss, but I have to look at that mid lane item for Nisqy. We talked about how you don't want to go for a Rod of Ages match here against the Kassadin because you want to speed that game up before Kassadin pops off, and already we're seeing the Leandri's Anguish comes through. He wants to go for something that gives immediate power now versus more power later. And then I want to see that used effectively. If you do keep a look at those summoner spells, Exakick and DOS, all 4 of them on cooldown. Hylissang's had to burn through his 2. MAD Lions still maintain gold control, and shopping-wise, 3 items already completed. Elyoya is going to drop that Rift Herald in the mid lane. That will answer the question you were posing just a few moments ago. This should be enough to take the tower down as well, and that's actually huge into a Kassadin, and also, as you mentioned, speed the game up, unlock the Viktor, and make sure that Sertuss doesn't have a safe lane to farm up and scale. And the thing is about getting down that mid lane tower, it becomes very easy now to kind of creep your control across the map. You can start to push in as Nisqy, then start to set up vision that we were already starting to see little hints of for MAD Lions in towards SK's jungle, and already MAD Lions are using the fact they have that pressure to now put manners onto Markoon and Exakick. They can't push up because there's so many members of the MAD Lions there. It's crazy to think that they're up 2,000 gold, you know? Yes, there's a plate and a tower down, 1 kill a piece. The farm is not that different, but I think crucially the jungle camps, and more importantly the plates in the tower, really pushing MAD Lions ahead. Carzzy right now has got that Gale Force completed already. Exakick with the Berserker's Greaves, the Quiver, and that Vamp Scepter. And frankly, Chasy and Irrelevant have not necessarily been involved in the game. Teleports are up for both, so I would imagine the next few skirmishes we could see them getting in. Sorry, you seem to think top laners matter in League of Legends now. I think you've missed something here. That's not what happens anymore in this game. Coming from the LPL caster of all places, damn it. Well, look, top laners matching for now because someone may die. Markoon and Sertuss making their way forward. Chasy's got his flash, he's got his dominus. I think it's going to be difficult, and that's why we say, like, Sertuss immediately start to back out. But here's where actually you now have a problem, because you've now pushed in mid, and here's that tower dive that we were talking about being set up. Nisqy shoves in mid, you've got the level 6, and immediately Exakick and DOS have to get out of here, so you give up plates, you give up your life, there is no winning, and Elyoya's here. Nimbus strike into the Cyclone, but the spark was great. I think very important, the final chapter has been used. Aqua Prison does not catch onto Sertuss, who is level 10 for now, doesn't have that second tier on Riftwalker, but for the time being, the tower does survive. The plates have just fallen, and we're gonna have this 1v1 between Irrelevant and Chasy. All out traded. Dominus is finally thrown down. The slice, the dice, the cold, the meat, the ruthless predator, the flash forward. Irrelevant stays alive. Chasy's got a minion wave to work with. Does Chasy go further? The question, well, the answer right now is no. Oh, he was so close to having that Q off cooldown, but Chasy not quite able to do so. Did a really good job of dodging every one of those strikes coming through off the Q of Irrelevant, but not going to be enough. But still now, MAD Lions starting to open up the map. They're moving people around. Second Rift Herald is up and available. Chasy should be able to TP back in if necessary, but this should straight up just be a MAD Lions pick. Yeah, looks to be the case. The first one was secured uncontested. Markoon steps over the ward. Vision going to give the information to MAD, who will continue to extend that gold lead. And I tell you something, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to send Toffle strikes during a team fight. It just doesn't flow super naturally. I mean, I struggle with general words in English, so I'm not going to be able to. What was the team Uzi used to play for? It sounds like a fruit. Yeah, orangey, thanks. Yeah. It's one of my favorites, Dagda. Yeah, I've heard that 33 in a turd times today. 33 so, in a turd. Oh, I love the Irish accent. It's so good to have you on the LEC. Yeah, I mean, I was feeling good about being here until this moment, but thank you very much. Dagda, be a realist for me now. Okay. Be a realist for me. Is SK starting to hit the point that they're too far behind?
I don't think so. I think the big one is if they can try and hold on to side lanes. So I actually think there's a bit of a mistake coming through here from MAD Lions where they're now going to send Carzzy in towards the mid lane. One of the big ways you try and play around Lucian is, okay, I'm going to stick Elyoya in a side push. We're going to immediately all in with Elyoya, with the Cyclone, with Carzzy and the Culling and the Gale Force and try and pick someone off who's trying to defend mid turret. But because there is no mid-turret now, Carzzy actually isn't really in a position to go all out and Exakick and DOS walk into it, which they might actually be right now. But you can see what I mean, right? It becomes very difficult for MAD Lions to group around the mid lane, whereas if they kept Carzzy in that bot side, they can then look for a repeat dive on towards the bot lane now that Sertuss' TP was burnt. But Dragon is up anyway, so they're going to just control that. I think you just give this as SK, get those side lane towers down instead.
A lot of damage onto Markoon. Zoomies going to be needed to try bring him back up. Final chapter is available for DOS. Irrelevant is split from the rest of the squad. So he's going to be trying to push that wave in. Chasy standing toe-to-toe. The Dragon's being burnt down and Sertuss will arrive in a moment. SK got the first Dragon. The second is now likely to go the way of MAD Lions. Irrelevant uses the all-out. Dragon is secured by MAD Lions. The final chapter on top of the gravity field and Sertuss is being burnt down by the Culling. He rift walks away to safety. Flash has been burned. Sertuss stays alive until the laser takes him out from Nisqy. So far, it's a 1-for-1, but the Dragon goes the way of MAD.
They're on the wrong side of the map.
On the wrong side of the rift. Exakick's doing what he can with that burst fire. Flashes over the wall. DOS will use that dash back and the Zoomies continues to burn away. Exakick gets out from the laser. Carzzy flashes forward. One more shot does it. And now DOS will manage to escape with Markoon.
And this is where we're seeing mistakes in SK, not just playing towards their win conditions. They don't win early flights. They want to play for late. They want to play for 3 items on Sertuss and Exakick and look to win at those later points. But the problem is we got to pause. And 2, we're also seeing that you're just hitting these big power spikes coming through for the side of MAD Lions with the Gale Force being completed for the Lucian, with the opportunity to try and take these fights. And if you just trade that Dragon for the time you bought off of getting the first one and get more gold onto your main carries, you're in a better position here as SK.
It's also in terms of that fight being set up, the fact you had the 1v1 in the bottom lane and then the potential 4v4 in the river. It's a challenging scenario to be set up. We talked about experience in terms of the 2 respective squads. Markoon has been playing professional for a year and a half, and that is the highest amount of experience significantly than the rest of SK. The reason I draw attention is that this is a difficult situation to be in.
Yeah, and look, this is really good from Irrelevant, right? I actually think at this stage, SK, you just cut your losses. You're like, okay, cool, we don't need to go for this. But watch Elyoya immediately on towards Exakick in that back line. So Exakick isn't actually getting that AoE damage off of these fights. Sertuss doesn't have the damage to really be a big threat towards people like Carzzy and on towards Hilly, especially with the healing that's coming through. So, I mean, there's nothing that you can really get access to here. And that dive that we talked about for SK just hasn't come online yet. So MAD Lions chase down SK and we'll be able to pick up a couple more kills on the backside of that.
Yeah, and I know that I think the majority of the credit that fight I feel should go to Elyoya. The Cyclone was incredible. I also think Hylissang did a lot of work in terms of the Aqua Prisons and the Tidal Wave buying time. But I do want to draw a little bit of attention to Nisqy on this Viktor. He was, of course, our summer 2022 MVP. He's got that Leandry's completed, but when you look at his statistics and the impact that he's had on the game, and now the man starts teleporting in, this is going to be the champion that my eyes will be on as the team fights play out because of how influential he can be.
And it's a bit of a different look for Nisqy. The reason he got summer MVP was because when we look at the transition from MAD Lions from spring to summer, he was so impactful in how he linked up with Elyoya, how he moved around the map on champions like the Taliyas and everything in between that could actually get out and start to move. But with the Viktor, not exactly a roam heavy champion, but now starting to show his chops when it comes to just raw damage in that control mage position.
Oh, someone wants to fight, someone wants to fight. Markoon's going all the way forward. The teleport's coming in, but it may be too little. It may be too late. Irrelevant needs to run for his life as Sertuss is being burned down by Nisqy. Chased backwards. That's at least 1 for Exakick. And Chasy can't close the gap just yet, pushing that wave forward. We still have a 4v4, but it's SK that are low.
I was convinced we just cursed Nisqy, but a great sidestep means that he stays alive. And once more, MAD Lions starting to push in. It is a 1-for-1 trade. Carzzy!
Look at that! The Gale Force as well as the rapid fire cannon. Sertuss is low. He's got the cat in his back. Exakick chunked and taken down.
There's no place like home.
There's no place like home. Sertuss is next. You can't go anywhere. Caught between a rock and a hard place and a Pride Alliance. MAD Lions dominate. dominate SK.
And for MAD Lions, having a performance like this means so much for the fans and for the analysts that are looking at this team. This was a squad where people were like, what are they going to look like? What are we going to see come out from this team? And this is a dominating performance against SK.
Now, remember, this combination of players have changed 3 out of the 5 from last year. They are coordinating and calculating their plays incredibly well. Starting with Baron at 20 minutes. Irrelevant, no ultimate available to him. Stepping forward, Carzzy's going to be dashed away to safety. Chasy's caught at least Markoon on the back. Cole the Meek is doing so much as Markoon dashes over the wall. Baron secured, plus another kill. MAD Lions are in absolute control.
And it all started with that second dragon fight, right? When SK gave over that control to MAD Lions, they are putting their foot down, and Chasy, though, might have overextended that bit too far.
Well, let's find out. That's the Rift Walk. Force Pulse. Uses that Q. Backup comes in. Chasy's got himself one. Continues to hammer away. Will get taken out. 1 for 1. They deny at least one Baron buff, but 9 kills to 4. 6,000 gold to lead. 1 Dragon to 0, and Baron at 20 minutes.
I mean, the big one, though, is that you have that Dragon coming up. Chasy won't be available for that, so maybe now you have that opportunity for SK to find that fight. Ultimates should be back up and available for all of them across the board. And with Chasy having no TP, maybe this is where SK can find that fight, but it's going to be a close one. They have to get to that immediately and fight.
See, in my head, when I look at this composition from SK, I really feel like as a team, they needed to be even, or at least a little bit ahead, because of how the team fights are going to play out. You really just want to run at people, run them down, and kill them one after the other after the other. If they can't get past the Wukong, the Viktor, the Renekton, it's so difficult to get to the Lucian, for example. All the mobility's in there, and when they're down this far, down already 3 towers to 1, and now they're going to start losing control of the map. It's a very challenging situation to be in.
Yeah, MAD Lions looks like they're just going to basically take the fact that they have that Baron and see if they can now find their opportunity to push forward. Sertuss is going to try and trade in the side lane, but I think it's kind of as you say, right? This is where it's now starting to become too little too late. You're not getting to a stage where you're massive. Sertuss is level 14 with that extra level coming through from the Rod of Ages, but he's still not big enough now to try and hard carry this game, especially when you look at the damage that's there for Nisqy as well, with those 2 items now complete.
I tell you what, MAD Lions, their ownership, their management are going to be very, very happy to see what Carzzy and Hylissang are doing. One of the bottom lanes that was the most sort of talked about, Carzzy returning to the roster. And of course, don't forget Chasy coming in to replace Armored. They've had a great debut game. I don't want to oversell it, but I think it is quite clear to see the communication, the approach to the gameplay, the way that MAD Lions have moved their resources around. Like, you can really see the level of teamwork and cohesion between them as the Dragon secures, and they almost get Sertuss as well.
I mean, it's also been very clean, right?
Yes.
I mean, there are some moments where maybe in the laning phase they could have been punished, but when it gets this mid-game, they aren't overextending, they're taking it nice and calm, they're playing it the way they should, and this is what I think a lot of people were worried about for MAD Lions, is that they kind of just go, all right, let's just see what we can do here, let's all in and go for it. But this is calculated, this is well played, and SK aren't being given opportunities to come back into the game. And when you've got a composition like SK and you're trying to close it out, that's exactly how you need to play this one out.
It's going to be so hard because 305, 8 of the 9 kills Nisqy's been involved in. He's got a 3,000 gold lead. 304, 7 of the 9 kills has Carzzy's name to it, and 8 for Hylissang. So it's so clear that that relatively slow-paced laning phase became explosive for the MAD Lions. They've got themselves 2 dragons under their belt. They got themselves 2 more towers during the Red Bull Baron power play. And now, once again, they're in absolute control of the game. And despite the fact that Sertuss picked up at least 1 early kill, unfortunately, losing his tower, losing control of his side of the jungle, pushed him too far back.
And I don't feel like we're getting to see exactly what SK, like their new bot lane is, or what this new team can be, right? Because it felt like you kind of just took one bad fight at the wrong time, and then you're just pushed out of the game. You don't have the timing to come back into it. So it feels a little bit unfortunate for SK that one fight can change the course of a game, but this is what we're talking about. MAD Lions needed to come alive in the mid game. They found that fight, and they're taking over from that position.
Is this a replay? Is this a replay? Nope, this is yet another siege. Top lane tower. Sertuss this time not under too much trouble. It's going to be Nisqy caught out. He's got the flash available to him. Dunk comes down as Carzzy forced to dash away to safety. Still got cleanse, still got flash. Cyclone won't hold anyone in place long enough. Nobody goes down. The tower is exposed though.
That That was a clutch stopwatch from Nisqy. Stopped the all-out from Irrelevant. You could see the animation had just started for it. Kept him alive, meant that Irrelevant was overextended, and that meant that the rest of MAD Lions could then clean up the fight. Now they get that tower. You've still got that push that had been set up by Chasy in the mid lane as well, which Exakick now has to deal with. And again, just taking it nice and slow. Nobody's going that too far forward, and you're just going to be able to set up for more dragons.
Markoon has jumped on, slice and dice, and stuck in place with that Ruthless Predator. Chasy committing the flash as well. They get the tower, they get the kill. Exakick's chasing, looking for a little bit more, won't be able to find the damage. And ultimately, another kill. 10-4. MAD Lions are even playing the, like, death bush hunting game well.
Yeah, I mean, I love that we're seeing more of this Prowler's Claw Renekton, because the distance you can cover is absurd, the damage you can output is absurd, when the rest of the team is there to help finish it out.
Does it happen again? Does it happen again? Not just yet. Irrelevant's escaping for now. Turns it back around. Now Exakick's trying to put some damage in reply. He's got himself one, but Elyoya's turning on. Sertuss is taking on with the help of Carzzy. Irrelevant stays alive just a few seconds longer. It's a double for Carzzy, going crazy. A third is secured by Nisqy. A double for Nisqy. And MAD Lions once again wipe SK.
And that's just so well played by MAD. SK trying to chase that bit too far forward, seeing if they can pick off a straggler, but end up getting picked off themselves. Hilly, 1v1 versus the jungler. He's got this.
He's got this. Hilly, you can win that fight. I believe in you. The coin always lands on heads when you're Hylissang. Oh man, 11,000 gold, 26 minutes in. Tower is now being popped in front of the inhibitor. 10 seconds to Baron, a minute and a half until Dragon. I mean, look, it has been a bit of a clinic since we came out of that laning phase. And then importantly for me, from the very early game, Elyoya invaded the jungle, and the rest of the team has been behind him. And I mean, we're just going to throw it again. Come on, everything in the kitchen sink, Dagda.
I mean, he doesn't have the all-out just yet, so still wait. They're still chasing. I mean, once they can get in behind them here, they're good. Oh, Carzzy.
Carzzy's a huge bounty. Carzzy's a huge bounty. Carzzy's a huge bounty, but Nisqy's going to be the focus. Kassadin's caught inside that gravity field. Carzzy's going to escape with that flash. Nisqy gets dropped in place by the cease and desist, and Irrelevant stays alive. Another fantastic going golden for Nisqy. All out will push Elyoya away. 2 more kills. 4 MAD Lions. A third will fall in just a moment. Markoon taken out as well as DOS. It is an ace for the Pride, and they're pushing into the base of SK.
I mean, fool me once, fool me twice. That is not going to work out for SK. MAD Lions with picking off all 5 members for a clean ace. We'll look to end this one out in style.
Fantastic performance from start to finish. MAD Lions on the hunt, and MAD Lions dominate SK Gaming. And for everyone watching at home, unfortunately the death timers on our HUD stopped working just in those last few moments of the fight. We are aware of that as we're testing some new tools. But I think for MAD Lions, again, for me, the biggest takeaway here, the way they played the game, and they're pretty easy to see understanding and coordination amongst their players, that a game plan and they work together to execute.
Yeah, and I think that was the big one, right? We saw them kind of give up the first dragon, wasn't the end of the world, right? But they were waiting for things like the Gale Force to come online for Lucian on that bot side so they could try and set everything up. And I think overall, it was just absolutely fantastic from them, playing very, very well through that mid-game and making sure they're able to bring this one home.
Nicely done, guys. Nicely done. Getting high fives from all the MAD Lions. Dominant victory. Turn our attention to SK. I know we mentioned a little bit. The draft that they had really needed to have some form of control, needed to kind of dictate the tempo of the game. Unfortunately, it felt like they didn't really find a way back into the game because Elyoya was really kind of dictating the pace.
And I think the big one is you have to understand, okay, we can give up this objective, but gain more off of going for something else, right?
Yeah.
And I think the clearest option for that was that second dragon, right? You give up second dragon as SK. Irrelevant can go for his play. That was a really sick play. But you should then go, okay, we're going to move Cass into his side lane. He's going to actually look for damage on top turret. He's going to get some farm into him. He's going to start looking for level 16. We can get some chip damage onto the mid lane tower. Start to try and crack open the map, so it becomes so much more difficult for MAD Lions to then easily move around and take over in the manner that they did.
I also think the MAD Lions team fights were great. I think a direct quote from Dagda was, I think they were lucky to get their kill. That river fight at second dragon, the initiation comes out from SK, the response from MAD, and just their team fighting prowess despite the new roster, new players, it looked great in that first game. I think admittedly compositionally gave them a couple extra tools. I don't want to be ignorant of that fact. but don't take anything away from him. They work together well for that.
And I think a lot of that, again, when it came to these team fights was Elyoya, right? Always in the right place with the right timing on that Cyclone. We saw him immediately get onto Exakick, nearly cost Sertuss at that second fight. And in a lot of those situations, he was setting up alongside Chasy to be that front line, to set up a lot of that CC to let the back line carry.
Strong debut for Mad Lions and Chasy with that Renekton performance. He's not going to be one of the nominees for Player of the Game. At LEC on Twitter is where you can vote. It's tough to actually pick 3 of these 5 players, but it's going to be Nisqy, Carzzy, and Hylissang as your options. I think when you look at just kill participation and the way that they were kind of facilitated, it makes sense. But truly, that was a team win, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, I mean, fantastic performance from Nisqy. Those stopwatch timings were fantastic. The fact he managed to get out of there twice. I think he played really well in the mid game, and even the decision making on his build. Like, there were so many people that you could have gone for.
I mean, Dagda's saying you should vote for Nisqy. I'm not, of course, but what I will say is Laure standing by with Nisqy on stage for the post-game interview.
Thank you, Quickshot, Nisqy. Thank you for joining me also. Quick hit on the player of the game. You, Carzzy, Hylissang, who do you think should take it?
I think me.
I think you, okay, argument then. The audience is going to vote for you, maybe campaign for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did really good.
All right. Well, let's see if Twitter thinks the same. I want to talk about the composition you had against SK Gaming, because looking at what they were playing, late game was super scary, I feel. So how did you approach this one?
I mean, to be fair, I think our job was pretty good. I think their last pick was ambitious. I think Kassadin can be good, but in certain conditions, and I think this game it was not very good, in my opinion. But so it gave us a free early game. We did end up giving them first dragon, which was not very good from our part, I think. But I think we did a good game, and we didn't really make mistakes. So we just cleaned up the game before Kassadin was just running around everywhere.
Yeah, you mentioned Kassadin, and I really want to talk about this champion because we keep on seeing it in the LPN and the LCK as well, and we know that with the recent AP items changes, it's supposed to be really, really strong. Do you think it's going to be the same thing in the LEC with the way teams usually play?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really strong champion when it gets going. I think it does need certain conditions, though, which I will not say more, but...
No.
But I think it's a strong champion, and we will for sure see him play in LEC.
All right. Focusing a bit more about you, Nisqy. You often said during the off-season that things maybe didn't go as you expected. You were unsure where you were going to end up, or if you were going to end up staying with the Mad Lions. Tell me about this and how it was for you.
Yeah, I mean, off-season was weird, as usual. But at the end, I stayed in Mad Lions, and I'm glad that we make it work. And yeah, I'll do my best. And I think this team has a lot of potential, so good thing that I stayed, I guess, yeah.
Of course, and you have to think about last year and how things ended. Let's not talk too much about the memes of failed best of fives and stuff like this, but what are the learnings from last year? And what is new about the dynamic with this iteration of the Mad Lions for you?
I mean, I think compared to last year, I have a way different champ pool or play style and whatnot. I think I slowly become at my final form in any way. I think this is probably the best feeling I've had in a long time of being confident and knowing to play so many different champs at the same time. Also, I think our macro is already really good, and I think it will even get better with time. So I think our ceiling is very high, and teams should be scared of us, yeah.
I hear you are peaking then. How do you explain this mindset and attitude you have and the fact that you feel so confident this year?
I mean, I think after last year, I kind of looked back and I looked at what I could have done better. And I think Pad last year, my positional coach, helped me a lot. And I feel like I didn't really listen to him that much. And then this year coming in, I have a new assistant coach, which is Zeph, and he helps me a lot. And also, I think just combination of coaching staff / me looking at VoDs and how I want to play the game, I think it just makes a difference. And for now, I'm very happy. Yeah. All
right. Well, new year, new Nisqy then. Thank you so much for the interview. We'll see you tomorrow for game 2. And Sjokz, back to you for more on that game.
Thank you very much. Great to hear from Nisqy. And we're also going to hear from Carzzy back with the Mad Lions. Congratulations, Carzzy.
Thank you.
It was really impressive.
I was also impressed. I didn't expect us to play this well today.
So scrims have been going bad?
Yeah, scrims have been going bad, but at this point I'm kind of used to it because back then when I was at Mad Lions, the year before, we were also losing all the scrims.
Yeah.
And still playing fine on stage, so didn't play that big of a role in the end.
Yeah, I remember that from those Mad Lions days. Talk to me about this game specifically, though. I think a lot of people are really happy that the cat lost and that the Zeri Yuumi specifically lost. But how did you, what did you think about playing the bot lane and later in the game? What were kind of I mean, there weren't any difficulties, let's be honest. It didn't look like it after the early game, right?
Yeah, it was not that hard of a game, I'd say. I think both team comps were pretty good. And I'm happy that finally someone played Zeri Yuumi and let Lucian Nami open. Because so far, as I've seen today, they didn't really do it. They only do it in LCK and LPL. So I'm happy we had the opportunity to play the matchup because I think it's a lot of fun. And otherwise, I don't know. Let's finish it then.
Okay.
Because I was going to say as well, there's quite a few viewers out there, fans, who's quite tired of meta already with bot lane, Zeri, Lulu, Sivir, Yuumi, Lucian, Nami. As a pro player yourself, how do you feel like with the AD carry meta champion pool right now? Are you happy about how it currently is?
I think that Lucian Nami has been OP for way too long. It's been 2 years that it's being played and it's like banned or picked almost all the time. So I cannot wait for it to be finally deleted or like not deleted, but nerfed. Same goes for Yuumi. I'd prefer to have some melee support meta. Again, I think it's a lot of entertainment for the viewers as well when there is a lot of fighting. So yeah, I'd like the Riot Games to do that.
I think I agree.
But I feel like as well, like at least this game got kind of different with what came out. While Kassadin is kind of strong, I do like the different dynamic it creates with the two compositions you have here. You get Lucian Nami, which is super good when you get the first item power spike to come through from both of them, which makes it really difficult for the team that picks Kassadin to play the game. Now the reason for this is, and I have an analogy, I used to coach and my mid laner would always want Kassadin to be picked on R5 and all of my other laners would be crying. Because if you have Kassadin mid lane, you have no mid pressure whatsoever. And when you're playing into Lucian Nami, that just gets to play like free into the mid to late game, you're on a clock. And they just played it perfectly on that Lucian Nami because they just cleanly drove it into the mid game and had lots of good skirmishes. How did you feel like your performance was being back on MAD Lions now in this game?
So I was scared for the first game, but in the end, I felt pretty comfortable playing the game, especially this matchup. I was a bit worried that I'm gonna run it down, but in the end it worked out. I also
How come? Where's this fear coming from? Why are you scared?
I don't know.
Well, have you watched old Carzzy games?
Sometimes, I don't know, there is just like a damage you cannot expect from Zeri. They just, like, you dash in and you just die randomly. Not randomly, but you just get evaporated.
Yeah.
So I was a bit worried that's gonna happen. But I think also the game was really easy because Nisqy played really well on his Viktor. I think he learned a lot from Humanoid, so it helped us.
Excellent. Yeah, great, Carzzy. It was great to see, and we're really happy that you had like a wonderful first game. It's cool to see you back on the MAD Lions. Can I get a quick prediction? Because our last game is Vitality versus Fnatic with Rekkles back on, and Bo over Vitality. What's your prediction?
I think Vitality is gonna stomp.
Nice. Okay, let's see what happens. I mean, not nice, and I don't have an opinion on this. I just meant cool that he said that. After the break, we'll see the LEC debut of Bo in a revamped Team Vitality facing off against Rekkles and Fnatic. Stay tuned.